Hi everybody! I received a couple of requests to talk about how I sewed this front pocket onto this traveler's notebook. This is what I'm currently using as my journal. So I thought I would just go ahead and talk about that today. And before I forget, most everything that I used I got off Amazon, and I will have all of the links in the description if it's still available. So if I can still find the products that I used, I will link them below. And I will go ahead and put a huge disclaimer on here that this is not a tutorial. I was just flying by the seat of my pants, and when I decided that I wanted to sew a front pocket on myself, I got all kinds of veruca salt about it and wanted to do it now, and I needed it now, which is why I bought things off Amazon, because I got them really quickly. And also I did not leave myself any time to properly look up technique and tips and tricks. I just dove into it, and I have a habit of doing that with things. If I decide that I want to just start something, I kind of just dive headfirst into it and learn as I go. So I picked a lot of cheap tools because I know that there was like a high chance of me messing things up. So I got really cheap stuff. So the things that I have linked below are just things that I've used. They are not the best or anything. I am not a leather artisan, but I bow to those that are, because something so simple was actually kind of tough. This was actually my second try. So this video is just so you can have a laugh at my expense as I explain everything wrong that I did. So first of all, this is a traveler's notebook by September Leather, and I got it on Amazon. And this piece of leather on the front here is from a brand called Hide and Drink. And it was a leather remnant pack that I got off Amazon as well. And it was literally just all of these pieces that had, and every single piece has either a brand or a scar or something. And it had a general size of what the pieces would be. And based on how big a standard traveler's notebook is, I knew that this would include pieces that would fit well as a pocket and be basically the size that I wanted. So yeah, there's all kinds of pieces, different sizes, different kinds of brands. When I bought this was the last one available. So this particular one that I bought is not available right now. I don't know if it's something they restock. I don't know. So you would just have to do a search for leather remnants on Amazon. So basically, out of this whole pack, I found this piece which I loved the most. And so this is what I ended up trimming off. I left this top edge raw, and I tried to preserve as much of the go as possible. So there's that. And then the other thing that I bought was this leather tool kit. And I'm not going to go through everything in here. I did not use everything that was in here. So this looked like it had all of the things I thought I would need, even though I have no prior knowledge of what I would need in the first place. But I mean, it looked enticing, so I bought it. And the biggest reason I did get it is because it came with a bunch of thread. So it had that one, this black one, and then the brown, there it is, and then this brown one. So I knew that I wouldn't have to purchase a whole bunch of things separately. It also came with some needles. So yeah, so I got that. And then the next thing I had to do was purchase a punch to make the holes in the leather. So this was like the worst part. So this is the first one that I purchased. So it came with these 4 with different amounts of prongs on them. Okay, so here's the first issue I ran into, is that you probably can't see it, but just trust me, this is a diamond shaped punch. So I hate the shape that this makes. It's all like slanted and I hate it. So this is what I had first, and I just dove in and used it. And I used it on this. This is like the worst thing I have ever seen. So this piece of leather was originally sewn on here. This is the exact same traveler's notebook, so I did have to buy them twice. When I bought these, there was like a $3 coupon, so these ended up being like $18 a piece. I tried to force myself to use this one, but it was so bad I couldn't deal. So in the end, I bought a new one and I didn't jack it up this time, so thank goodness for that. So with this one, I used the diamond shaped chisel, and this is also 4 millimeters apart. Like the spacing on this is 4 millimeters, which I have also discovered that I don't like. It's too close together. I don't know, just for my own personal preference. And I was all over the place with this thing. Let's just zoom in so you can see how horrifying the stitching is on this. Oh my gosh, it is abysmal. And oh my gosh. So first of all, in order to get the spacing correctly, I used this tool, which I have no idea what the name is of it, but if you drag it down the edge of your notebook, it puts a tiny little groove like that, so that you can have your punches spaced the same away from the edge so that it looks nice and neat. Except even with this tool, I got it all kinds of crooked. So another mistake I made was that I punched too close to the edge. I should have moved farther in. And it was so bad that I even ran off course right here. I mean, yeah, that's pretty bad. And I figured, whatever, from the front, you can't notice. And the other mistake is that I did not adhere the front pocket on with any kind of glue or anything, because I just didn't want to buy it. And I ended up using just binder clips to hold it together, which I know is like, don't do that. I did it with this though, and it came out okay. So I don't know, try at your own risk, I suppose. So I really should have practiced, and I didn't, because I just don't. When I want something, I want to just get there. So I did it on this and I hated it. And also, I did not know proper stitching technique. I think I just randomly saw like an IG video of some leather maker who had threaded both needles like opposite into a hole and pulled them out and just like stitched like that. So I tried doing that and I made a ton of mistakes. And then I watched one YouTube video. All it took was one YouTube video on proper stitching technique, and then I got it. But I just couldn't be bothered originally. So I will link that video below. So one of the mistakes that I had made was when I would put one needle through, and then when I put the second one through, I would hook the thread and then I would sew through that thread. And if you watch that video, you'll see that you are not supposed to do that. And then also, there's this like weird looping technique that gets the thread to look nice and straight and kind of at this like slant that I never noticed before, but now I notice it all the time. So anyway, I got better technique for this and it ended up turning out really well. So from this, I knew that I wanted a wider space between the holes and that I did not want this diamond shape. I hate it. So I took out a bunch of my traveler's notebooks from tons of different makers and then decided that I actually liked a circular punch, which is what this is. I like when the hole is larger and it's round. So then I picked these up off Amazon, and these are 6 millimeter spaced and they are round punches. So If you look at the reviews on this, they are all over the place. Literally half the people that bought these got them and they were dull and wouldn't even punch through butter, you know? And I was so impatient that I just sort of held my breath, took a chance and bought them because they were pretty cheap as well, from what I remember. And I don't have anything to hold these against, so I do not know if mine are actually dull or not, or if I just don't hit them hard enough. So I'm just gonna go with my limited experience and say that these were like semi-dull when I received them. They punched fine. I had to put a lot of power in my mallet to get these to go through. And then I also found with actually both of these that I liked the ones that had a smaller amount of prongs on them. When I try to use like this with the 6 prongs, I found that I couldn't get them like evenly punched through, but the less that you have, the easier it is to get a good whack on it and get a hole made. And probably because I was working on top of an uneven mountain of cardboard, you know, to get these to punch through and to have enough padding beneath it. So, you know, just don't listen to me. Maybe these are just fine. No clue. But I didn't want to use the 2-prong one all the time because I found it was easier to get a wonky line if I had less prongs. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like all kinds of little details. And I'm like, why? I just want a pocket on the front of this. So I also set this tool to be a little bit wider. So when I scored this, the stitching was set further in, which I liked. I didn't run off course at all. I ended up just lighting a match and sealing these. So it looks totally burnt and not classy like all of the other makers ever. So I ended up taking one of the scraps from this pile and I was testing the spacing on the scoring tool and got it to where I thought would be good. And then I practiced with my new circular punch and practiced threading with the proper technique, the proper sewing technique. And yeah, and then I just went at it and it was fine. And the thing was, I loved this piece that I picked, but it was sewn on to here. And what I ultimately did was, obviously, I just took my rotary cutter and cut as close to the stitching as possible to try and preserve as much of this leather as I could. And in the end, it was perfect. I'm still really, really happy with this. And I thought that I will just cut that off and then I would use this and chop it down and make it into like a personal size or something. And I got a little carried away and I sliced right through the whole thing. So there you go. I'm still keeping this piece because I can still use it for remnants and practice or something. Although I don't have any plans to do any more leather work right now just because it was such a pain in the butt. This is the mallet that we had. I wasn't gonna buy one and I like annihilated this thing. Look at that. There were just pieces flecking off of this thing the whole time. And so yeah, I guess I ruined this and this was the improper tool, but I just wanted to buy the least amount of tools that I could because I figured I may only just do this and that's it for my entire life. So I didn't want to invest in really good things. So I managed to preserve the piece of leather that I wanted for the pocket. I got the proper punches and then I learned the proper sewing technique. And then this time I also used this beeswax block that came with this kit. And you can see the grooves on it because I would just hold the thread on it and just slide it through so they would get nice and waxy. And I found that it was much easier to sew when I continuously put the wax on it. And I broke some needles while I was sewing this, so I ended up having to order more on Amazon. These pliers that came in this set, I used a ton because I had to constantly grab the needle and pull it through, and it really saved my fingers. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I suggest you practice on some scraps that you have and not ruin something like this, but live and learn. I mean, classic. That's exactly what I would do. And then also, this is the same notebook, and I've been buying from September Leather on Amazon for a while now, and every single time I buy whatever notebook in the same leather, they always come different. So there's a lot of inconsistency there, just for your own information. This one is like almost feels sealed with something, obviously really shiny, and this one is way more matte and has a softer touch to it, but it's the same, which I'm sure accounts for the reason it's so cheap, I guess. But I like it enough that I knew that I would be happy using it if I could get the pocket on the right way. And then also, obviously this one is stitched all the way around because I always talk about how I have this thing for continuous stitching. I hate when there's gaps in stitching. But this was way too ambitious for me. And then I figured if I just had stitching on the pocket, that's actually satisfying enough for me. And the type of stitching that I don't like is when there's like an obvious gap where it looks like it could just go ahead and connect, like on the spine usually is where you'll see it from other makers. I don't like when there's a stitching gap right here and it's empty. I like the stitching to just continue. But because this is kind of its own separate piece and this doesn't have any gaps in it, this is actually perfect. I don't mind this at all. In fact, I love it. So I learned from that. I wasn't going to continue it all around the whole entire thing. I mean, this is really gnarly. So anyway, that is my adventure with stitching this on. I am not going to be doing it again anytime soon because I made a giant mess and my fingers were like red and raw. And I just held this like between my knees because I didn't want to get that, I don't know what you call it, like a saddle horse or something that clamps your leather all like perfect so that you can just like easily stitch it. I was like, things were falling on the floor and I was just being extra stubborn about not wanting to purchase more stuff for it. I would say, let me know if you have any questions, but literally just watch any other professional ever. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and I will see you all again soon. Bye.